We are Movie Menu Reviews. Seize the podcast. On today's menu, we'll be reviewing Pixar's Coco. Movie menu, movie menu, the movie menu, movie menu, movie menu. Welcome, ladies and gents. I'm Dan the Man Muñoz, host of Movie Menu Reviews, your weekly movie news and reviews podcast. Here live on Facebook with episode 169. Woo.
169.
169.
And also here to join us is our resident Disney expert extraordinaire, Heather McLane. Welcome.
Yay. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
Also here is our co-host senior panelist, Z.
I've been gone for a week, but I am back.
Welcome back.
Short vacation. Short vacation, if you ask us.
Yeah, and just a side note, I did hear the podcast. I was angry the entire time.
Moving on.
As you all knew, because I was texting you guys while listening.
Yeah, we're not doing the Justice League review. We're moving on to Coco. Also here, who never takes a vacation, is my co-host, Mike Stang.
Hey,
You need to go on a vacation, Mike.
It's because I'm mentally always on vacation.
This is true.
Your words, not ours.
Which is why now we just make you host all the reviews.
Yeah.
So you can actually,
It's
stay
like
in the show.
So I could do even less.
Exactly.
You've been basically demoted.
Yeah. Demoted to host. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a way. It's.
Trust me, it's not a glamorous gig.
I think it's called falling upwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're falling upwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and start our review for Coco. Unfortunately, we won't be doing any movie news today, as we'll go ahead and do some next week.
Yes.
So, Mike, as I did see the movie this week, I'm going to go ahead and toss the movie hosting duties to you.
All right. Thank you. So the movie we're reviewing today is Pixar's Coco, directed by Lee Unkrich and Adrian Molina, written by Lee Unkrich. Stars Anthony Gonzalez, Gael Garcia Bernal, Benjamin Bratt, Alana Ubach, and Renee Victor. Here's the plot. Aspiring musician Miguel, confronted with his family's ancestral ban on music, enters the land of the dead to work out the mystery. Now, depending on your review, I will decide if this movie's worth a dine-in, watch it in theaters, take out, wait and watch it at home, or leftovers, roam the land of the dead.
Of the forgotten.
Or the forgotten.
Yeah.
Now, hold on. Before we continue, I'm going to take the hosting duties back real quick. Sorry to do this again.
It's mine.
I'm taking it back.
I'm
I also want to give a special shout out to our audience member that's here.
Oh yeah.
Michael Hill. Hey, Michael. Thanks for being audience.
This is the strangest.
Hopefully you
live
heard.
studio audience.
Live.
Hopefully you heard an awkward single clap in the distance. We put him in the corner of the room.
We'll just fix it in post, Mike. We'll add like a bunch of clapping.
There's no post. This is live.
Oh
We're
shit!
live.
I forgot about that.
No more post. Sorry. We don't have that luxury anymore.
Okay, now taking it.
I don't want it anymore.
Too late.
Okay,
You can't. You have to have the hosting duties back.
Fine. I'll get it back. Okay. All right. How's it going, Michael? Here and enjoying the show, wherever you are in the room.
In the land of the forgotten.
We have him staring in the corner.
Yes.
The wall.
So, Mike, what happens if with our rating or if we win?
Yeah, tell us,
Get us
please.
back on track.
Now, depending on your review, I will decide if this movie's worth a dine. Oh, we already did that. I'm sorry.
So what
now
happens when we win?
We'll fix it in post. Don't worry. Whoever wins.
Let's cut it.
Can we just cut right there? And no, we're not going to cut.
We 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
We'll give the hosting duties to Heather.
No.
It'll be like hot potato.
Yeah.
All right. Whoever wins gets a point, and whoever has the most points will get a chance to do his or her own segment at the end of the season. Z was the winner of last season, so we actually truly have a segment in the
We
works.
we
for you
have
guys.
something planned finally.
Finally.
Yeah, you're welcome. But
Thank you.
yes.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, it was
good
Dan's
credit given to
idea.
Dan, yeah.
I stole it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
At least you admit it.
Yeah, no.
You're paying homage.
You know,
to
you know what's
Dan's,
funny though is because I mean we talk about this all the time, but it's seriously winning is a burden. It's like we don't want to win.
Says the guy who's winning all the time.
I don't have any points at the moment. I
That's
think.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have given all my points away.
Yeah,
I actually have no idea who's got what points.
I don't know.
I feel
We'll
like
just
these
give them all
points
to
are
Dan again.
imaginary, and you guys don't actually keep track.
No,
of
it's,
them.
we
yeah,
don't.
We don't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I mean, we kind of do,
Yeah.
but we kind
I
of
mean,
don't.
Yeah.
The points don't matter.
The points
it's
don't
just,
matter.
It's just a fun little, thing
It's
that
like
we do.
whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
Exactly it,
Points
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
matter.
In the end, we listen to like all the episodes.
We do.
and then we start tallying up all the points. We really do.
But we
Yeah.
do that like literally the night before. Like,
Yeah,
we
we
recorded
do.
live
It's
show.
a-
Night
Oh
before.
shoot! It's
Wait.
tomorrow.
It's like a
okay,
final.
okay.
It's
Don't
like
don't
your,
believe Dan at all. Dan just said the night before. That is not true. We do it 5 minutes before we record.
That's true. Last season we did do that, but
Yeah.
we've done it the night before.
I think
so.
I think that's partially why we hand the points. We just like lose count, and we're like, who do we want to burden?
don't remember. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Let's burden Dan.
Like
Dan-
I quit. I feel like this doesn't even matter.
No, we really do keep track in an Excel doc sheet somewhere.
Yeah, I
Online.
should
No,
update.
we-
We need to update that.
We forget the title and which email
Yep.
it's in,
Yep.
but
every time.
we'll find it eventually. Anyways.
So what happens if we win? Oh,
Yeah,
found
so
out
if we
already.
win,
Yeah.
you get the segment, and now
Just
Good
now-
job, Heather. Good job.
Our points roll over.
Yeah.
So if you're in a point, you can go ahead and sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
yeah, that's okay. All right, let's reeling it back. Let's rate this movie to get the point. So Heather, how would you rate this movie?
I want to kind of go contradictory so that I can win a point, but I can't because I'm gonna say dine in.
Yeah.
Dine in. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go with Dan.
It's also a dine-in.
All right,
Yeah.
got to dine in Z.
Yeah, and unlike last week, this actually deserves a dine-in because
We're
Justice
not
League was
talking
not
about
Justice.
Justice
Yeah,
League.
was not. This is dine-in. Solid, absolutely solid dine-in. Take your whole family, I say.
Three-way
Solid
tie
dine-in. There you go.
podcast over.
Podcast.
The shortest review ever.
over.
All right. Yeah, I think we're done. I think I've heard enough. Now, Dan, if you could go ahead and go into just the story for those who haven't seen it. So I haven't seen this film. So other than what I've seen in the trailers, I don't know too much about it.
Well, it's funny because the trailer doesn't give too much of the
It doesn't,
story,
yeah.
but the story itself is a very simple story.
Yeah.
So it turns out that you see in the trailer Miguel, who is the
The
young
lead,
boy,
yeah. Uh-huh.
he finds a picture of his aunts, like his great grandparents, where the father's face is ripped off.
Oh.
I mean, now his face is not ripped off.
That's brutal. That's metal.
But the picture is ripped off, and you don't see his face. Is what I meant.
It's pretty hardcore. Are you sure this is a kids movie or is it?
No,
a
this is
horror
Pixar, Triple X,
Yeah.
Pixar.
Gotcha.
Wow,
Triple X.
Pixar Triple. I'm sure I've seen that on Pornhub. Actually, now that you
I didn't know they made those kind of movies. But, you know,
was
Wait, that's the movie that we all saw, right?
I think you accidentally walked in the wrong theater, Dan. But
Actually, before we get to that, accidentally walking to the wrong theater. Can I just take a break real fast and just review Olaf's bullshit
Oh
adventure?
yeah, before
Yeah.
before the movie starts.
Before we do that,
So wait, hold
yeah.
on. Let me set it up. So every movie before Pixar or Disney, they always show a short. Like right before, like there was
Yeah.
Feast. I forgot which movie that was
Yeah,
for,
that
but that was
was
a
a
great
little
one.
yeah, yeah.
There was the volcano one.
Yeah, oh, that was a
before.
beautiful
There
one.
was the cute little bird
The
one.
birdie
before
one.
the
Bird
bird
one.
one.
That was
That was
amazing,
adorable.
So
Yeah.
this one they decided to do a Frozen short, quote unquote.
Yeah,
Not short at all.
And
not
at all,
short.
yeah.
So
Like
it's Olaf.
45 minutes?
no,
or-
it's
It felt like it.
felt like it.
It was 21 minutes.
That's a pretty long
That's
short.
Yeah.
that's basically.
It is the
yeah.
longest short they've had in the history of Pixar. Yeah, so it's actually the longest one. I looked online for that.
Yeah, and it's Olaf's like Christmas adventure, so
Yeah.
Olaf's Frozen adventure.
So it was like a made-for DVD thing.
It
that
could have
they
easily
just-
run
that
on-
they just dumped in.
No,
front
it
of.
could
Well,
have
the
easily
thing-
run on
the-
ABC.
The thing that sucks is that usually before the Pixar or Disney animated films, they usually show like a small little
Yeah,
character
yeah.
that you don't know
It's-
of.
it's
It's like
like-
your first glimpse into this character. We've already experienced Frozen as an audience. Well, most of us, not all of us, but we didn't need to experience that for 21 minutes.
Oh no.
Like that's something they could have aired on ABC for the
Easily,
holidays.
yeah.
So it felt like more of like a cheap advertisement than an actual like because it is like a
Heartwarming, like they're amazing little short films.
Yeah.
It's the cool little thing. Like I actually look forward to when I see a Pixar movie.
I do too.
Just like, oh, what short they're gonna show
Yeah.
this time?
Mhm.
Because I love the shorts.
Oh
Yeah.
Man, this is the first time I ever like hated a short.
Right, like
Interesting.
right in the history of the things that they've done. Right, I remember Punjabi's. I forget which one that was.
Yeah.
Which
It
was a
like
beautiful short about superheroes.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was a beautiful
Yeah.
one. Like, and they usually give it to smaller artists, but this one dragged.
Yeah.
And I could see, and as we were saying, like everyone around the theater was looking around, going, "Did we get into the right
Yes,
theater?"
that was a constant thing I heard around in my theater as well.
Yeah. So
This is
it
the
was
right-
such a
right movie.
yeah. It was.
What did you think of it?
I mean, it was just way too long. I mean, I was expecting the short, and I was expecting that short because I had seen an ad for it, like, world premiere of the Olaf whatever adventure. But, oh my God, I looked at my phone right after it ended, and then they had some little announcement.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why was that after the
Thank
short?
you for watching
before
our
the
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, thanks for coming out to support. Like, play the freaking movie.
Yeah.
It was 40 minutes
40.
after the showtime.
Yeah. Yep.
So like my movie was at 10 p.m. It was 10:40 when the movie actually
Wow.
started.
Yeah.
Like holy shit,
Right.
guys,
Yeah, because of
come
the
on.
trailers and then this. That's like
Yeah.
Like
50
I could have
minutes.
showed up
Yeah.
40 minutes late.
Wow.
And still
Yeah, and I
seen
was
the
so
movie.
mad because the theater was so packed and I couldn't get my popcorn
Oh,
and
yeah.
soda. And then I realized I could have gotten popcorn and soda because I could have skipped this. I was so
You could have
mad.
like gone out to dinner and come back.
Yeah, come back.
Like,
You would have been fine.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Luis Salgado, a friend of the podcast, texted me and he's like, "Is it true this movie's more than 2 hours long?" And I was like, "No," but it does feel that way because you have to deal with Frozen. That's
Got
the
it.
problem.
It's only an hour 45.
Yeah, it's a really short film, but it feels longer because you're in there for an additional 45 minutes.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
before we get to the review, that one, by the way, complete leftovers. Don't watch it.
So dine in, but with a side note, show up 20 minutes late.
Yeah, that's a fair.
40
Well,
minutes.
no,
40
but then
minutes
you
late.
missed the trailers.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
Okay, step out when the trailers are
The
done.
you know what? It's a kids movie, so the trailers weren't even that great.
Yeah, they weren't
Okay.
that great.
Oh, that's not true. A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
a
Wrinkle in
good
Yeah,
time.
that
Wrinkle
looks
in Time.
cool.
So
I'm
should we talk
excited
about the movie
that.
now? I feel
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
haven't talked about the movie for 45 minutes.
Yeah, well, we're leading into it.
We are
in
leading
the way
into
the
it, yeah.
movie. Yeah,
We're
and the
trying
way
to make you feel what it's like to go watch
Yeah.
it.
I feel like
Firsthand, our theater experience. That's what
That's-
what we offer here at Movie Man.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so the story goes back. So Miguel, so you sets up the story. So the way they tell the intro story is really
Uh-huh.
cool. They stay with
Papeles.
papeles, which is like the decoration papers.
Okay.
They tell the origin story of the family.
The family.
basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so how like the great grandfather was a musician,
Mhm.
and they had the great grandmother was a singer, and they had all this music together, and then they had a child. She gave up the music for the child, but the father left them.
Oh, okay.
So she vowed to not have anyone in her family to play instruments or love music or listen to music.
Interesting.
Which
The
I-
music was banished.
Yeah,
in
which
that whole household.
which I love because that immediately sets up that Mexican culture of the maternal structure of a Mexican family, and I was like, oh, really cool. Immediately, they're really hitting on cultural tones. Continue. Sorry.
So that was so when we start this movie with Miguel, he loves music, but he's been forbidden from his family to pursue it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a lot of fun montages of him like trying to listen to music, but then having a guarache, a sandal being thrown.
So
And-
it's
yeah.
pretty accurate.
Oh
then.
my god, it's so. I was getting PTSD while watching
the whole
it.
thing with the food, like they're having dinner as a family, and the grandma's like, "Oh, you want a tamale?"
Oh, yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, just one," and she's like putting a bunch on his plate, and he's like, "No," and she's like, "You wanted more than one, right?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, anyone who's been over to a Mexican household knows the feeling of being
fed.
Overfed.
Yeah, overfed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're rolling around.
Yeah, so
Okay.
immediately like they're getting it right because they're really kind of going into it, and through I believe the first third of the film, they're really giving a history of what it is to celebrate Day of the Dead, which I thought was really curious because it felt like an outsider telling the story of Day of the Dead.
Interesting.
Because
No, that's good.
I've grown up listening to these stories, so I know about it. And so that part I found curious. I was wondering for you guys, did it feel a little too heavy-handed in like the explanation of Day of the Dead, or was it just clear enough for you guys?
I don't feel like I jumped in, but I don't feel like I'm the right person to really answer that because for me,
Oh, yeah.
having been around this culture a whole lot, but not being a part of it personally. I felt like they actually did a really good job of sticking to culture and not trying to Disney-fy it too much.
Yeah.
But I was actually, that was a question I was going to ask you guys, is how did you feel? Did it represent the culture well, or was it too heavy-handed, like you said?
Yeah.
No, I think they paid respect, and they had to, because Disney was under fire, Pixar was under fire for when they first announced they were making this film, because they wanted to copyright Dia de los Muertos.
That's right.
And they got a huge backlash.
As they
so I
should've.
felt
As
as they
they-
should have.
Yeah.
So for them to screw it up, they couldn't.
They
screw
could
it up.
not.
They
screw it
had
up.
to.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they hired the co-director. That's why they did culture.
Adrian Molina, the co-director. Yeah.
And they got other people to go ahead and give their influences on culture and their thoughts and their traditions. So they had to do it right.
Yeah.
And I felt like they did.
And yeah,
And they paid respect to it, and
yeah.
they did it right.
And I agree. Like, from the history, and I celebrate Day to Dead every year. I thought they did a really good representation of it. I like, obviously, from my side of things, I was like, why is there so much exposition that, that's dealing with Day to Dead? And that's why I was thinking, like, maybe because I know about it, I obviously didn't need to hear the explanations, but others did. And so the way that they did it was, I thought was really well done, because even at that, like, there are like the spirit animals, all that is all part of the history of Day of the Dead, and so they did it so carefully and so what's the word I'm looking for? Did it so like.
They approached it with a lot of
Sensitivity?
respect.
No,
and
not sensitivity. It just
they
felt
they told
fluid.
the story
It just,
comfortably. Like
comfortably,
they
yeah.
didn't have to strain to tell. It wasn't like, here's the exposition of
Right.
what this means. It was like the family talking to him about stuff. They made it part of the story,
Exactly.
the
I
explanation,
see.
instead
That's
of just
exactly it. Yeah.
exposition. It was the exposition was worked in very well.
So,
Right.
It was
so
smooth.
it was like you were learning it with Miguel.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah, because Miguel already knew about it, but the way they were learning about it was through the experiences, and I thought that was the best part, because
They basically showed you instead of telling you.
exactly, yeah.
So
Got it.
instead of like saying this, we actually get to see it unfold before our eyes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there are some things that they got right with Day of the Dead. Would you be able to get into a little bit of those things? You had mentioned like spirit animals.
yeah.
Were there other things that you could quickly cover?
The idea, I mean, the main part of this film is about remembering others, and it's actually the theme song of the film is "Remember Me." And I think because that's the song that gets played 3 times throughout the film, it is in fact the characterization of what Day of the Dead is. It's meant Day of the Dead is meant to remember those who have passed away, and so you pay heritage to the people who brought you to this world, and you don't have to forgive them, but you just have to accept that they were there. Without them, you would not be here. And so the way that they showcase that throughout the little stories, like Miguel kind of going like, I don't want to remember, I don't want to be put on an altar, right? Or the
ofrenda?
the ofrenda, yeah, the ofrenda, exactly. So that is significant, because that's kind of what the whole story is about, and they got the ofrenda right, because as soon as you look at it, they've got food up there, they've got pieces of clothes,
The marigold flowers,
marigold
which is like very big thing in the culture.
That's another huge thing. The marigold flowers is a huge thing. So even at that, like the passage into
And I love the fact that was a device they used as well.
yeah,
That
it was
great.
beautiful. Yeah, and so all of this film is about remembering others and remembering your family, and all of that, little by little, they got that right. And even at that, the colors were just right, because the marigold, that vibrant gold color, is exactly how you want it represented in the Day of the Dead representations. So I think this film really is a good companion piece to the other Day of the Dead
Book of
movie,
Life.
the Book of
Yeah,
Life.
which I was just about to bring up.
Yeah, I think it just does a really good job of explaining from a different point of view, because I think Guillermo del Toro had a part to do with Book of Life. This is a different side of that same story.
Interesting.
Now, how accurate was this? Because there were actually some things that I learned about Dia de los Muertos that I didn't know, or was this accurate information? Like, for instance, I didn't know that if you forgot, or if you didn't put someone's picture up and like the last living person forgot them, that they'd actually disappear.
Well,
the Land of the Forgotten is a thing in the Mexican culture. So yeah.
And then there's actually like a pathway of marigolds, or is that something that Disney did?
I feel like that's more of an addition to the story, and that's
Well,
like
it just depends on like your Puebla and where you're from. Like,
Yeah.
people do that.
yeah, and it's a good addition, because it just kind of like because part of the ofrenda is that you're giving passage to your relatives to come back. Now, there's no explanation as far as like the culture as to how they come back. What we do is we put food out, we lay the things that they enjoy, and so that's what's calling them back.
Oh, you're talking about literally like a
But
bridge?
is there a bridge?
Well,
no.
Not necessarily the bridge, but they put marigold petals on the floor
Oh,
as
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
pathway, like
Oh, yeah.
for instance, from the cemetery to like the house or
Yeah, I think that's a thing that's practiced in smaller pueblos, as Dan was saying. But yeah, so a lot of this was really well done and well crafted because you really cared, and I think that's another thing, right? We really deeply cared about Miguel's story because he journeys into the land of the dead, and the way
And you see that he's like the black sheep in the sense,
Yeah.
like he's the one that wants to pursue music, and so the story is the family, they become like shoe cobblers. So they go ahead and they repair shoes, and that's all their life is, doing that. But Miguel wants to pursue music because he just loves music, and he finds this solace with this De La Cruz character, Ernesto De La Cruz, who he idolizes, and he gets signed up to do this to do this contest, and that's how the story starts. He tries to steal,
right, because he's got no guitar at that point, and so he tries to steal Ernesto's guitar. But as in doing so, when and this is in the trailer, when he strums the strings, he's transported into the land of the dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
which is cool because you see the marigolds are on the floor, and those are what help transfer him over as well.
And another really great Disney thing is that you've got an animal that's kind of following him along, Dante in this case.
That's like Moana with the chicken, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just like Moana with the chicken, you do not expect Dante to be a good character, a side character, but he's such an adorable, silly looking dog. And even at that dog is in the Mexican culture, that type of dog. Squeaky. I forget what the name of the dog is.
No, but it's a breed that
Yeah, it's a breed that's specific to the Aztecs. That dog is actually one that takes care of souls, of lost souls. So it actually plays well into the story itself. And it's just an adorable dog. So it's really funny. And they're always like, maybe it's a spiritual animal. Nah, it's just a dumb dog.
This is a dumb dog.
Yeah, and so it's a really fun journey for him to go into it because then he finds his family. And in that, he has to get their blessing in order to return. But because he wants to be a musician, the family is unwilling. They're like, you have to promise us that you will not.
Well, they give him his blessing because all he needs to go back. Like they find he's a living boy in the land of the dead.
Yeah.
And the guy tells him, well, he could go back anytime. You just need to give a blessing from your family. And Imelda, the great grandmother, who was the singer that gave up music for her daughter, who the daughter named Coco.
Yeah.
That's the movie's based on her daughter.
Uh-huh.
She gives her the blessing under condition that you can never play music again. So
Miguel says no. He runs away.
So he's all he needs is a blessing from his family to go back. Then that's when he's like, well, I'm gonna get a blessing from
Ernesto De La Cruz,
who he believes is his great grandfather.
And the conflict here is that if he stays until
Sunrise,
he will turn into he'll basically turn into one of the dead people in the land.
So he'll die in the land of the dead, or he'll be a calavera. So with that being said, he follows and he finds Hector, which he's just another like a vagrant. It's a really great introduction of Hector.
He's like this little like low life type of character.
Yeah.
Like,
and he gets introduced dressed as Frida, which
Frida.
is really, really funny. So immediately you know that this guy's a con man. He's he's a side character. You don't know where he's coming from. So it's a really good introduction of a secondary character, and he's voiced by Gaia Garcia Bernal. So it's a brilliant way of kind of introducing these characters. And again, it just feels fluid because you start to realize that they're in a different world. And it's based around the Mexican culture. So you have scenes with like mariachis. You have scenes with a whole bunch of musicians kind of like living it up. And what I thought was really, really brilliantly done, because Ernesto is a celebrity, a star. He's got the biggest altar.
He's like the Vicente Fernandez of the
But in the land of the dead, his home is like the biggest because he gets so many ofrendas. He gets so many gifts because when he died, he was famous, and so you realize that like, oh, maybe fame isn't a good thing. And I think that's another subplot to the story, which is like what does fame do? Does it take you away from your family? Does it ruin you in some way? And ultimately, like that's kind of the journey that you're on with Miguel. And so it's such a beautiful movie. I thought was just absolutely amazing. I think more importantly, the music in this
Music is very important in this film.
is beautiful. And again, Remember Me was the lead song of this film, and you hear it in 3 different iterations, and by the 3rd time you hear it, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but or maybe you too, I don't know, you just start sobbing up. Like it's you hear the first time and you're like, oh, that song's stupid. You hear the second time, you're like, oh, that song's not that stupid. And then you hear the 3rd time, same lyrics.
So it's the context.
Well, it's like it's not that it's stupid. It's just like the first time it's saying it's just like it's a big old song. There's no emotional ties to it. And the second time you hear it, there's emotional ties, but
They're
still.
building it. Yeah.
And then the 3rd time you hear it, you cry like a baby.
Yeah. You really kind of like I know I was. I mean, I was like don't cry.
Oh yeah, I totally cried. And it's 3 different versions of the song, like as far as like tempo and things like that. And then obviously the emotional content behind it made a big difference of how, as an audience member, you felt hearing that song. I think it was a beautiful movie. Of course, it was Pixar, so it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
But it was very, very well done.
Well, and the one thing that for me sold me on the Pixar quality was not like the gorgeous colors or anything like that. It was actually watching Coco, who's an older lady at this point of the story, and the camera is like zooming in on her face, and then what distinctly as a Mexican person really caught me was that she had chin hair, and that's what really sold me on whether or not they got it right. Because
that's just an old lady thing.
I know that my grandma has chin hair, and I was like, oh, they got it right. It wasn't the music, it wasn't the colors, it wasn't the calaveras, it was the chin hair that really sold me.
Something that really sold me as well was just the message between like following your dreams, but also remembering your family. Yeah. And that's like a struggle that a lot of artists deal with, you know, when they like what they want to do. And it just hit home really hard for me as well. But it was beautiful to watch, and the story itself is very simple but very effective.
I will say it's a recycled plot, because many Disney movies are the young hero has a passion or something that they want to follow and their family doesn't want them to. Right. And it's all about them going after their dream but earning the acceptance of their family. Like Moana, that just happened. I mean, it's all every movie's about that.
It is, yeah.
You know, Toy Story or something.
But like ultimately, right, it's about like that idea of being remembered. And I think one of the lines, and this is not a spoiler. I'm positive it's not a spoiler. But the line of,
if you're positive, it's
no. The line out of context, it's not going to make sense. But the line of like, you don't have to forgive, you just have to remember. And I think that is such, like, I've never heard that before said in a Pixar film.
Drink to remember? No, I'm just kidding.
That's
a joke for Heather.
Oh. It always comes back to that.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But that phrasing of like, you don't have to forgive, you just have to remember. And I know, if being part of a family, obviously, you know there are family members you can never forgive, but you have to remember for what they've done for you, the positive things. And that's something Day of the Dead is all about. Day of the Dead has always been about, like, you might not have, right, and you go to funerals, you'll see that a lot too. You don't have to forgive the bad things, but as long as you remember the things that they've given you, the positive things they've given you, like, you know, the passion to find music or find arts as being the thing that you want to do, because maybe they pushed you in the wrong direction, but that forced you to do what you wanted to do. That's the cultural significance of Day of the Dead, and they nail that to a T in this film. So I know it's a recycled plot, but I think that that's also like an addition to the lexicon that is Disney. It's new, it's different, and more importantly, it's culturally significant, because a lot of the people in my theater were all Latino. I definitely saw more cultures in there. However, the majority were going to see this film, and so I think that's beautiful. I think that the more people who get to experience this idea that yes, death is a terrible thing, and we all feel really sad about it. However, right, the living have given us a lot more, and this movie does it. This movie does it really well, because it puts it right there for you to understand. Yeah, got it.
Also, I think it's a recycled story, but I think the layers that is around it gives it that heart.
Yeah, well. Yeah, and I think because this film, I mean, yes, the director Lee Unkrich, he did have a second director on here, Adrian Molina. I think that's significant too, because you can tell the music is different, right? I think they got a lot of musicians, Mexican musicians, to play for this film.
Well, Michael Giacchino
did the composer, but a lot of the sampled music, the music that they brought in, are all classic Mexican folklore songs, and so they're all enveloped in there. I mean, even Frida gets mentioned a whole bunch in this film. Right? So you have a lot of artists that come in, and you just see that clearly this is a film made from Disney Pixar, but the people involved were Mexican, and so you get all that heritage. And currently, at a time in which our culture is kind of like shaking our fist at the border, it's actually kind of good that we have something so culturally significant. And I think that's another part of the film that I really was scared about, was that there's a part of the film where one of the guys turns out to be bad, and I was like, oh, there needs to be an antagonist. But the way that he's shown, I was like, ooh, that's not good for us, right? Because with the way that the news covers current events, you're just kind of like, oh shit, don't put us in a bad light. But they do it in a really good way, and I thought this movie just did it right on all fronts.
Okay, that's great to hear. Is there anything in there that? Yeah, I mean, you just said it did it right on all fronts. Yeah. But
there's some negative parts. Yeah, I mean, not negative, I guess to say,
just
but
to get into, yeah.
Yeah, just to show that this, like Z says, there's no perfect movie, I guess.
Yeah.
as I always roll my eyes when he says that. Yeah. This movie was,
but it's true.
To be fair, it's a kids' film, but it's also made for adults as well.
Yeah.
It's Pixar focuses on a family film, something that kids and adults can enjoy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But this movie was predictable.
See,
it was quite predictable
for you guys. I just signed up and I was like, to be fair though, I did not watch a lot of trailers.
No, it had nothing to do with trailers. Yeah, it was just you
agree
saw
with me,
where
Heather?
the story had to be going.
I think
there was nothing that happened that surprised me.
Okay, yeah,
at all.
Yeah,
there were several plot twists, but I saw them coming.
I think he was distracted by the chin hairs.
The chin hairs happened in the final act. It wasn't that. Okay. No, but I honestly got shocked, and I literally should not have. I know that I shouldn't have, but the fact that I went in the theater full of children, I went, oh, I really did that. I had that moment of like, oh my God, and I was like, oh, I just said that
really?
out loud.
I apologize to
I'm
those.
so surprised.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. We have some people commenting. First thing is Michael Hill, our audience member, said that
rock on.
The kid complains constantly.
The kid
he
does complain.
Yes.
Hold on.
Okay,
Nathaniela Austin. She says she didn't like the way that Frida was represented. They sort of treated her like a comical artist.
Yep.
What do you think about the weird border crossing thing? And then Rigo, who has no opinion whatsoever.
That's worth the value anyways.
He says, Michael Garza is my favorite. I mean, Mike Stan is my favorite.
Still love you, Rigo. Thank you.
No.
No, Rigo.
Okay, yeah, the kid complains a lot. To be fair, if ever you've known a kid, they complain a lot.
I mean, I feel like it was a necessary plot device because otherwise the story wouldn't have continued. Because he kept running away. He'd just be like, and leave.
I think the really significant point too was when he complains
that's adolescent life.
That's adolescent life.
Like how many times have you run away from home and when you were growing up? Don't even try to lie because I know the stories.
Well, what I liked most part, and I agree with that. To our audience member, I'll refer to him back here. But the point where I thought was very significant of a character arc was when he was doing that to Imelda. And then she reveals, like, dude, I also love music. So I thought that's the part where it really, like, shifted for me. Where, and again, in the same way that the music, Remember Me, has 3 different points. This movie, his complaints are completely childish. But as the movie is shifting, you start seeing that those arguments are part of his growth. And so they're the same, but they're part of his growth. So I thought that was still really interesting. Yeah, he's complaining.
Okay.
Yeah. And Frida is absolutely used as a comic relief. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as they introduce her, you're just...
She's the only, like, really actual character that is real that's put into that film.
Yeah, well, that you can see. Because...
apparently Cantinflas is in there.
Cantinflas is in there. There's a whole bunch of people who are in there. I mean, hell, Skrillex is in there for whatever reason.
Skrillex?
Yeah. He pops up.
That's interesting.
Please tell me you guys saw Skrillex.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy when they're doing like the Day of the Dead ceremony, and he's on the DJ table. Just
oh yeah.
There you go. He's in there. It's weird. But he's in. Is he Mexican? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's really strange. But yes, Cantinflas was in there. El Santo was in there too, who was a Mexican masked wrestler. That was that was a really funny scene. So yeah, there are other big names, big Mexican names that are in there, but you really, really have to pay attention.
And there's Edward James Olmos, right?
Oh, he plays a character.
He's
Yeah,
very, very small. Where it's like I guess a walk-in voice role. Is that?
I mean, he plays quite a significant part of the story because you realize the consequences of being forgotten through his small, little, tiny story.
Interesting.
So that's when Miguel goes to the land of the dead. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but
okay.
Yes,
it was an important learning moment for the audience, but it was a small, as far as time on screen, it wasn't very long, but it was very significant.
It's like a voice cameo, but plays a good role in the plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't. I mean, he's such a great actor, but they don't waste the emotional impact that he has in this role. I don't feel like.
Oh no, I don't think so either. I really felt like because
he could have been a bigger part, but I felt like he did a great job with this part.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing that just to wrap it back to where Dan was talking about earlier, the story is very simple, and you don't need a whole lot to tell it. So having more characters would have probably just burdened the story down. So the fact that you just had these 4 big leads, right? You had Imelda, you have Miguel, you have Hector, and you have Ernesto. Those are the characters you want to follow. Those are the stories you want to know, and that's what makes the story give you that emotional impact to the point where you will probably cry like a little baby because that's kind of what this movie is leading up to.
That's right, Pedro Infante. So
Pedro Infantes,
Rodrigo says the movie was great. I didn't understand how the first 21 minutes took place in a part of Mexico full of snow. Oh God, Rigo.
Wait, what?
He's like he didn't realize that he didn't understand the first 21 minutes looked like a place took place in Mexico full of snow, which is a Frozen.
He's referring to the Frozen shorts.
Like,
that's good.
That they deal with kids every day. True stories. They complain. Rigo, he has dreams. The kids is just fighting for his dreams.
Yeah.
El Santo was represented. Pedro Infante also represented. I forgot about Pedro Infante. Yeah, he was there as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's a scene in the movie where they do. It's a really cute fast clip shot where they show a bunch of artists as Ernesto's kind of like super happy, and so you do see a lot of celebrities, and I think that's where they appear.
Yeah.
So if you want to look for that, that's where you want to see.
Okay. Yeah. Any final words for this film, Dan?
I think Pixar did a great job with including the Mexican culture in this film and doing it right, and also the story itself is simple, but it's very touching and emotional, and I enjoyed it.
Okay, Heather.
To kind of go off of that, it was a beautiful film. I really liked it, and I think that, let's say for someone outside of this culture, I think it's a good learning vessel. Like, there's a lot of people who went to go see this film, and actually, it's funny because I went to a theater in more of a white area, and there was like a little section of like Latinos over here, and they were cracking up at all these jokes that nobody else got.
Yeah,
like there's lots of little little inside things.
Oh my God!
Like like being chased with a chancla. Like we don't think that's
that
funny.
God. Again, PTSD.
And like little people would say like little tiny phrases in Spanish that are very common, and they'd be cracking up, and the rest of the audience would be quiet in those moments. But I feel like this was a good learning experience for people to just understanding, like bridging the gap of understanding or lack of understanding. Like there were things that I learned about Dia de los Muertos that I'm really happy that I learned. Mm-hmm. So I think for people who have even less, experience with this celebration, I think it's really powerful in that sense. Like in a time where everyone's really divided, like it's bringing people together a little bit. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as my final point, what's up, Dan?
Our audience member, Michael Hill, also said, kind of funny that the short before the amazing Mexican story has only white people in it.
I agree with that entirely. To be fair, they're part of a fairyland. Well, no, that's not true. They do mention the country they're in, right? Whatever.
Yeah, and they do in the short, too.
Yeah, they do,
made a giant gingerbread cookie cut out of Norway. Yeah,
you're right. My final point is this. Who would have known if you hired Mexicans, you can tell a pretty concrete story about the Mexican culture.
I like you put concrete,
So thank you, Disney, for hiring outside and being able to hire representations of our culture, because this is a film that does it right. There is no. I really didn't feel like there was any issues of misrepresentation, and that's the part that I was really worried about. So you know what, Disney, hire more women, hire more people of color, do more films like this, because this is the kind of story that will win you that Oscar that you really want. So I say,
this doesn't win Best Animated Feature, then
go.
That's crap.
Yeah, go watch this film if you're curious about it. Take your family with you. This is a great family film.
It is. This is a great family film.
Yeah, and you know, again, right, at a time when which we're most divisive, this is a film that brings people together, and more importantly, brings your heritage into the discussion, right? Remember the people who came before you, and this film does a good job of doing that. So yeah, go watch the film.
All right, sounds great. I think I got more than enough for the rating, so obviously it's a dine-in. So
is it, Mike? That was good.
Yeah.
He's like takeout.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, is this better than Justice League?
Yes.
He hasn't
wait.
seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet,
Yeah,
but you will. But you will. Hey, Dan, is this better than Justice League?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? It is
I guess I can say it sounds better. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's more emotional. Justice League is just fun. Get off your bandwagon, or get off your.
I mean, it's
Is this another Pirates moment where he just hates it to hate it?
No,
No,
he didn't hate it.
No. I liked Justice League. I just didn't feel like it deserved a dine-in. It wasn't a.
That's your opinion.
Yes.
And
Okay,
we are.
back to this movie.
Coco. Yeah, and Coco is like it seems like a movie that musicians will probably especially.
Oh,
God,
yeah,
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
you probably will
You're
love
gonna
that.
love
so-
this movie.
Oh,
yeah. So I think it definitely.
Everyone
caters
doesn't know
to-
Mike is a musician.
Yes.
So it
That's why
sounds
his
like
name is Mike Stand.
so. This film sounds like a mostly authentic Mexican
yeah.
film.
Yeah, you'll like it.
With according to Leti Cayela, except for the Frida.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, was that offensive? Because I was a little tiny bit like, I don't know if I was offended, but it was just like
I
don't
laughed
feel like this
so
really?
damn hard.
Okay.
What happened? Because
Oh no!
I mean,
Well,
it's-
the
what
first
do they
off,
do
you should. I
with
mean,
Frida?
Hector's character dresses in drag as Frida.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
the first thing.
I mean,
He's
it's just-
trying to
and then-
sneak out of the land of the dead.
so it's
Yeah.
just a character being a jerk.
No.
No,
But then,
no, no.
but then we meet the actual Frida,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
she's
and-
like, "I'm gonna have 100 Fridas come out of this painting, and all this stuff, and all this."
Oh, okay.
She's,
So she's like
really
being John
eccentric
Malkovich.
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
Well, obsessed with herself,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She's like, and this cactus that is also Frida. And it's like,
which
like,
looked a lot like Pickle Rick. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it just looked a lot, and that's what made me laugh.
Okay.
But yeah, it was
Okay, so she was like the butt of a joke.
it was a really
Yeah,
big
she
joke.
was eccentric, a little narcissistic, and just like I'm an artist.
Right.
Like he's making
Okay.
fun of artists
Yeah.
in general.
Okay.
But aside from that,
okay.
they represented artists pretty well.
Alright.
Aside from making fun of them completely.
No, but that's fair though, because that's being honest, man. Like you know,
But the funny
whoa.
thing
that's
is,
but that's being honest because there's jerks like that in every field. So of course you're gonna have it in artists.
but the funny thing is, without Frida, like, and that's spoiler. Never mind.
yeah, don't say
And
it,
then
don't say it.
there, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say there would be no jerks without.
no.
I don't know.
There would be no joke.
There'll be no
No
ending
jokes.
if there was no Frida.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
or- okay.
Yeah.
I
You
don't know what
said
that-
too much.
I did.
You
I
I don't
said
know
too
what that
much.
means, but I'll go watch
Dan,
it
shut
with
up.
that in mind.
no, stop talking. That's
All
it.
right, so dine in, go watch this film. After the trailers, you can go buy your popcorn or have a restroom break for 20 minutes
Yeah.
and then come back
Uh-huh.
to start the film.
That's a good plan.
Yeah, choose
Yeah.
somebody to be the sacrificial lamb. 'cause
Yeah,
they will have to
the whole-
suffer.
They'll need to hold your seats.
Or
for
no,
you.
or just go to a theater that you can actually choose your seats.
Yes.
Yeah,
That might be
that's a
better.
good
There you
idea.
go. There you go.
That is the thing now.
Yeah, AMC Montebello.
Yeah.
Don't, I'm boycotting
AMC downtown. Oh, they bought it?
Oh,
ArcLight.
I'm avoiding ArcLight
I know.
now.
I know,
Yeah,
I
you
know,
can't.
I know.
Yeah, $18 is
Too
regular
much.
ticket.
Yeah, I
Too
agree.
much. Handing the hosting duties back over to you. Dan.
Yeah, taking it back.
Nope,
yeah.
I already handed it back.
All right, thank you, Mike, for hosting
Yeah,
our
thank you.
review for Coco.
We didn't mention that, so like every time you guys said it, like
Oh,
I was
yes, right.
thinking Coco, like injured,
Well-
like
Well, it's funny because the so it's almost like Mike, I'm gonna steal your joke because you still want to said it. It's almost like Legend of Zelda because everyone's gonna assume Miguel is Coco.
yeah, which
So when you say Coco, oh, you're Coco, everyone's gonna assume it's a boy,
yeah,
not so much the great grandma.
yeah,
So
yeah.
same thing with
exactly.
Link, everyone calls him Zelda.
Exactly,
So it's like
exactly.
a similar
And then-
situation.
So is there any relation, like Mexican slang, like when you get injured, you got a Coco. Is that?
Oh,
that's
no,
what
no,
I kept
no, no,
thinking.
no, no,
like,
no,
Oh,
that-
no,
yeah,
no, no.
that- no.
because of the way it was being said, like Coco.
No, it's
like,
her name. It's
Wait,
it's the
It's her nickname because
No, it's her name.
no.
No, I thought her actual
No.
name was like Rocio or something. Where
They never said.
They never
it.
said
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's called Coco.
Yeah, I think
Even
I think,
they all could just call her Coco.
I think it's a shortened version of an actual
So
name.
he calls her like
I would say like Consuelo would
like
be
Grandma Coco.
maybe.
basically.
Okay.
or Mama Coco.
Mama,
Yeah.
Mama
Yeah.
Coco.
which is what you like. Which Mexican mothers would tell their Mexican little kids, "You got a Coco."
Right,
you
right,
know?
right.
So that's what I kept thinking in my
No,
mind.
no,
like,
it's not that. Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now I'm bad taking it back again.
No. I'm like holding Dan's leg and he's like walking away. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a Coco.
Damn.
All right, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Heather, for being on our show, our
Yay.
Disney
Having me.
expert extraordinaire.
Although I didn't feel like much of an expert for this movie, I feel like you guys were more knowledgeable. I'm like, hey, what'd you think?
Your input's still important.
Yeah.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah.
Damn, Dan.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Followed by awkward silence with Dan.
I was like, what do I say to that? No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for being on the show, Heather. We always love you. Is there anything you want to promote? I know there is.
All right, so coming up, opening December 8th, we are doing our annual Christmas play, but this year we're doing a lovely piece written by Dan the Man Muñoz over here. It is called
It's
Girl.
not that lovely.
It's your own play.
Are you booing your own play? Boo!
Boo.
Didn't you write this?
He did. He wrote it.
I I wrote it.
So it's a really fun family kids adventure, and we did this show in 2013 with Company of Angels.
Well, technically, we did this show in 2010.
we don't
and
talk
then-
about that one. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, we
Did
did
Dan
a-
write that one? as
Yeah,
well?
no, I wrote that one. It was a 30-minute version. Then we did 2013. We did a longer version.
Yeah, and we did it with all adults. But there's like it's called The Girl in the Enchanted Forest. So it's actually a girl, and she's
I was there.
transported into a forest. But we're actually using kids this time, so the
Oh.
girl is actually a girl instead of
A
a
9-year-old.
20-something-year-old. You know, yeah, she's 9.
Cool.
And then her little friends that she meets in the forest are actually kids. And then we're having there are some adults in the play as the creators of the forest.
Huh.
But it's a really silly, fun adventure, and it's only going to be an hour.
Well,
and
also mention Heather directed it or is
Oh.
directing it.
yeah, that's me. I directed. But it's going to be about an hour. It's completely free. We're going to be at Belvedere Park, which is on Cesar Chavez in East LA. And we open December 8th. We run 2 weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 7 p.m. You can check out all the information at www.etwla.com.
One more time.
www.etwla.com.
Good job.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show. Also, thank you, Z,
Thank you.
for welcome back.
Boo. I'm kidding.
And most importantly, thank you to our audience member, Michael Hill.
Yay!
Thank you for being our audience. Look at you, hear him clapping. He's clapping. He's clapping. So that will do it for us here at Movie Menu Review. Stay tuned when we review a new movie next week. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're listening to us on iTunes, thank you so much. Subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Thank you, guys. Until next time.
Bye.
Goodbye. There we go.
I was like, what's happening? You're just smiling.
Just smile. Just smile.
We should do that once. Just no music. Just wave at the phone.